lines with this. So just a few things with a close point. If you see a close point on a number line, this is a solid dot that indicates that the number that it's on is part of the solution. And then if you see an open point, that is an open circle on a number line that indicates that the number is not part of the solution. So these right here, these are pretty much the same thing. They're similar. So if you know how to do inequality, then you can just copy it for the set notation. And for close points, for these, you'll see these symbols, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. For open points, it'll just be either less than or greater. You won't have that equal sign. In interval notation, if you see a close point, you got to use a bracket, and then open points will be parentheses. So this is the first example, really, and everything else after is just more examples. So interval notation, you do it from left to right. You're always going to have two things separated by a comma. So on the number line, the thing on the left is this right here, the -4, so that goes first. Since it is a close point, we use a bracket. And then on the right, we have this, which is a 9. Also a close point, so we're going to use a bracket. And then for inequality, always start like this whenever you have two numbers. So you copy the first one. So this one right here goes on the left. This one right here goes on the right. And then since we did have close points for both of them, we do need equal signs on both sides. And in the set notation, you do this little squiggly bracket. We identify that x is our variable. And then you just copy this right here. You copy it down. So we have this squiggly bracket. And that's pretty much it. So I'm going to start with interval notation. So left here is the -4. This one's going to be a parentheses because it's an open circle. And then we have the right side, which is a 9. This one is closed, so it's going to be a bracket. Inequality, start off like this. -4 goes on the left, 9 goes on the right. And then the 9 is the one that had the close point, so that's the only one that needs the equal sign. And then set notation would look like this. Okay, number 1. So we have -9 should be a bracket. Then 1 on the right, parentheses. And we need an equal sign with the -9 because that one's closed. Set notation. And then for these three, we are going to write the description. So description just means how do you say it out loud. So for something like this one, if you look at this side first. And we always start with x's. So x is, since it's opening like this towards the x, that means it's greater. We do have an equal sign, so or equal to the -9. And then I'm going to look at this side. So you're kind of looking at two different parts of it. So then that reads x is less than 1. So we can say and less than 1. If you want to say x is again, that's fine. But this is enough to write your description. Okay, number 2, left we have -5 with a parentheses, 2 with a parentheses. Then this one doesn't need equal signs because they're both open. And then the way you read this one, so again, start with this side. This one says x is greater than -5. And then this side says x is less than 2. Okay, and then number 3. Ooh. There it goes. I am frozen. Hold on. It won't let me move it. Okay, continuing with number 3, so interval. This one's a little bit different, but on the left, so we have an arrow. If the arrow is on the left, that's going to be negative infinity. And for infinities, we always use parentheses, no brackets. On the right, we have -2. There should be a bracket because it's closed. And then for your inequality, we do not, for either of these, we do not use infinities. So you would say for inequality, we always start with x. The only number given was -2. So you have to figure out, is it going to be less or greater? Since -2 is here, the rest of my number line, so the arrow is going to the left, which means less. So we put less than. And then we do need an equal sign because the -2 is closed. For set notation, it's still the same. We just copy it. And then description, we have x is less than or equal to -2. The back is just a bunch of examples, so I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. This is what your assignment looks like. So you're going to be given one of the 4 here, and you have to figure out the other ones. So number 1, they give us the inequality, which means we already have the set notation, because this is the one that we copy. If you're able to, do a number line, if that's what's missing, because the number line is very helpful. So you don't have to put a bunch of numbers, just put either 1 or 2 numbers, depending on the problem. The only number in this problem is an 8, and it should be open circle, because there's no equal sign. If you have a problem where there's only one number, that means you're going to have an arrow. So to figure out, read this to yourself. This is x is greater than 8. Greater than 8 means we go to the right, so the arrow goes like that. And then interval notation, remember this one's left and then right. So left on the number line is the 8, should be a parentheses, and then right is this arrow. So since it's going to the right, it's going to be positive infinity. Okay, so same thing with the next one. That is your set. I'm going to do my number line. This one should be a close point at -2. And this one says x is less than. So less is going to be to the left. For the interval, left on the number line is an arrow. So we start with negative infinity. And then right is -2. Should be a bracket. Next one, we have 2 numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and I can still do this. Let me do the set notation. And then for the number line, I'm going to put both numbers. Both of these should be closed. And every time you have 2 numbers, they're connected, no arrows. For interval, we have -5 on the left with a bracket, 8 on the right with a bracket. Okay, next one, I'm going to do my interval first. My interval first. So on the number line, I have -3, should be a bracket, and then 8 parentheses. My inequality, remember, if you have 2 numbers, this is where you start off like this. -3 goes first, 8 goes second, and both of these, no, only the -3 needs an equal sign because it's closed. Next one, I'm going to do interval. So on the left, I have an arrow, so negative infinity. On the right, I have a 9, and it is open, so parentheses. This one, remember we put x, we put the number, and since the arrow is going to the left, it's less. We do not need an equal sign. Our set notation looks like this. I forgot the negative. Okay, next we have this number line. The -5 should be closed. 7 should be open. So we start off like this. -5 needs the equal sign. This next one, for interval, on the left I have an arrow, so that's negative infinity. On the right we have an arrow, so that's positive infinity. I told you we don't use infinities on the inequality or set notation. So the symbol is like this. That's kind of like a little curvy E, and this just means all real numbers. For the set notation, we're going to do it the same way. Moving on, number line. Both of these should be closed. And we do need equal signs with both of them. Okay, next one, they give us a set, which means we already know this one. My number line, both of these should be open because we don't have equal signs. And then on the left, we have a 2. On the right, we have a 6. Both of these are parentheses because they're open. Okay, this one, I'm going to do a number line. Only number I have is 0, and it's closed. So I mean to have an arrow. This says that x is greater, so greater means we go to the right. That's your number line. For the interval, left is 0. Should be a bracket. The right is an arrow, so this is positive infinity. Okay, next one, I'm going to start with my number line. I have only number is -4, which is a close point. Since the infinity is negative, that means left. So we put x, -4. And then, since it's going to the left of the -4, it should be less. We do need the equal sign. Okay, and then last one, number line. The only number we have is 1, should be open. And the infinity is positive, so it goes to the right. For this one, since it goes to the right, it's going to be greater, so greater than 1. No equal sign. And then finally, the set notation.